Greetings, nerds. This is Stand and Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. Hope you're doing well this Thursday evening. I have to say, I had to hold myself back from texting you last night after I watched Secret Invasion.
When did you watch it?
I watched. Well, I was worried it was around 10 o'clock or so. So I was like,
I had already seen it. I had already seen it.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to spoil it. I didn't want to spoil anything. So if you hadn't watched it yet, but it was first time in a while since I think probably since back at either Andor or House of the Dragon, where I was just like, oh, I gotta just say something because I just couldn't wait for a Twitter DM.
Yeah. We'll talk about our thoughts on Secret Invasion. It was a good episode. But first we have to, as Will describes it, put a bow on it regarding Superman Legacy casting. I can't think of their names. I know their faces. And it's exactly who I thought based on everyone you threw in front of me. And then I see something also that says Nicholas Hoult is likely to be cast as Lex Luthor. And I'm like, Will, are you phoning? Are you sending messages over? Messages to them and saying, this is what you do, guys, for casting.
Yeah, I have James Gunn on speed dial. Actually, James Gunn has everybody on speed dial, given how much of a Twitter presence he is. And he did listen to the internet, like you said. The internet really was advocating strongly for Rachel Brosnahan for Lois and David Cornsweet for Clark. And that's what we got. Yeah.
And the internet never is wrong about anything.
Never. But, the internet's never wrong, but James, one thing, you may run hot and cold with as far as James and his humor and whether or not Guardians works for you or not. But the one thing you can say with him is the man can cast. When you think about recent exhibit, John Cena, Peacemaker.
Right.
Yeah. So there's definitely, he has a very strong casting eye for talent. So, given that with his version of Superman Legacy, what he has in mind for the character and where the character is in his journey, if Cornsweet and Rachel, which sounds like they, from all indications, it was the chemistry screen test that really pulled, I guess, her over the edge, because I know earlier in the week, I think Emma Mackey was actually rumored to be the front runner, but apparently, I guess when they did the chemistry test.
That makes sense. Based on, I saw somebody tweet out something and it showed a picture of, Mackey and saying this is likely to be our Lois. And then I saw the news that it was Rachel and I'm like, okay, so something must have happened. And yeah, we said it from the get-go. There needs to be chemistry between these two actors, no matter what. So both of them can fit the part independently, but if there's no chemistry, then your movie is likely not to do it. Well, it'll probably do fine in the box office.
Right.
But
yeah, but at this juncture, DC cannot.
At the thought of considering what's going on with the Flash in the box office right now, I don't know what is a guarantee anymore.
True. And also DC, between Blue Beetle and, which is another, it's not a household name as far as superheroes. Obviously nerddom is familiar with them, but, whether it's Ted Kord or Jaime Reyes, but, you go to the average person on the street and they're like, oh, okay. Maybe people will check it out because it does look like it might be something different. And then, of course, there's Aquaman, and they're just really banking on the Jason Momoa factor, which, may help that film out box office wise. Because I guess Fast X did okay, I guess, box office wise, but that's really an ensemble film.
Right.
So, but DC they have no margin for error at all now. So Superman, a lot is riding on Superman Legacy. So I think, the internet wanted this pairing, and that's what the internet got. And hopefully the story will, James's story will win people back to DC with the reboot, because, you have that strong Snyderverse contingent that's out there. And, and that was one of the knocks on Corn Sweat was, well, he looks a lot like Henry Cavill. We already have him, we already have Henry Cavill. Why go Henry 2.0 or whatever? But he wanted to go with the younger Superman. So
he doesn't just look like Cavill. He looks like any other person who has played Superman.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Tyler Hoechlin may be the most different looking out of all of them. So it's the type, like everybody, when you think of Superman, you clearly have this image. And so far they've always casted towards that image. Yeah. So, I mean, and they, yeah. Anyway, the other never ending saga of, conversation, is when Will gives his update on the whole contract negotiations that are happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually tomorrow is the deadline for the, Screen Actors Guild's, contract. It expires at midnight. Negotiations are still ongoing. I know there were some things happened this week as far as, a letter from the guild to the guild leadership members sent a letter to them, Fran Drescher, and who's the president of the guild currently, basically telling her and telling leadership of the negotiators to not compromise and not budge too much to the studios. And so, the whole firm, if they need, they offered the vote to strike. And, that's the posture that a very sizable and and pretty big names of the contingent in the Screen Actors Guild, were signatories to the letter. First, it was like around 300 names. I think Meryl Streep and some other people that caliber were part of that, who, they can afford to not work in between jobs like a lot of actors, but then also a lot of other people, signed on as well. But, so where things stand now, at least as of recording, but I hadn't checked, here in the last hour, but I think the latest thing today was, given that we have the holiday weekend coming up, they were going to try to they may not pick it starting on Saturday if things do not come to an agreement by midnight tomorrow. But maybe continue to have talks and stuff through the weekend and delay any type of formal strike actions until after July 4, which, maybe by then they may work out a deal, but if not, then the guild will be joining the Writers Guild and have a work stoppage. So and I bring that up just because, of course, July is typically when we have Comic-Con, and it is still scheduled to go forward, but a lot of studios aren't participating this year because of the work uncertainty and don't have any, and also some studios are just electing to do their own thing. I mean, Netflix, for example, has their own, event now. And, between that and with the uncertainty of, the labor agreements, talent may not be available to even show up at Comic-Con. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as things progress.
Yeah. I still consider Netflix's whole, unveiling their whole annual unveil of upcoming shows to be kind of a joke just because of what they named it. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. It makes sense. I totally understand it. But whenever somebody mentions Ta-Dun or says Netflix is like their thing is coming up, I'm like, is that a real? It sounds fake.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds like
it
a
really
joke.
does. Yeah.
All
But
right. Well,
yeah, but one last thought about Comic-Con though, given that it is coming up. I mean, and it flows back to our conversation about Superman. DC probably will show up. I don't think, cause they just, this will be their prime opportunity to like, we know Marvel Studios is definitely reducing their footprint. So it's like, hey, we have an opportunity to not get upstaged by Kevin Feige.
yeah, but I don't know, with everything going on and
Yeah.
just given what the Flash box office is doing at the moment, I honestly, it'll be interesting to see what they can pull off. And if they really seize the opportunity or if they again get in their own way. Because there's a lot of distrust with DC, as the box office is showing. And despite leadership changes, despite, what looks like we have a promising Superman film coming in our future, there's still been almost a decade of a lot of distrust.
Yeah.
So, and maybe it extends beyond just DC, considering everything going on with the strikes. It kind of feels like we're going to take a hit with content again, just like what we did after COVID. And so now people are losing distrust with these companies. It's like, you're telling me this project, but then there's a pandemic, and then there's a strike, and then there's this and that, and things that you said should have come out last year are suddenly coming out 3 years from now, and then it's a horrible movie because it switched directors 5 times.
Right.
So
and then they say, oh, it's comic book fatigue, and it's like, no, it's not comic book fatigue, movie fatigue. It's just bad story fatigue.
Okay, you heard it, everyone, because Will has often, especially when we talk about Marvel, mentioned having fatigue.
Yeah.
But you heard him say it's just lazy storytelling, which I saw that too, and I heard somebody say that, and yeah, I completely agree. It's just, we're not dumb.
Yeah.
we know, we're honestly, and it's not that. I am perfectly fine with when I don't like a movie. I didn't like Flash. Will loved Flash. Okay. He saw its flaws and was like, screw it. I like it. I'm going with it. I'm enjoying the ride I'm taking what it is for what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Me, I was like, nope. No. I see you and I don't like it. But I'm also it's not that I want it to do bad. I just kind of wish I didn't have half of my family with me when I went to see that, because I felt bad.
Exactly. It hurts for future movies, because now everybody will be like, oh, if it's going to be like that Flash movie you took me to, then I don't want to go waste 2 hours and 30 minutes or 3 if it's really self-indulgent.
Seriously, we can just hop out of this theater and go see Spider-Man Across the Universe, because that is a completely worth it. 2.5 hours flies by. But yeah, I think and the more I consider everything that's going on right now, the more I don't know if this is just a DC issue so much as just a distrust in movies and TV shows. I mean, the last item on our news list is how Star Trek Prodigy is being removed from Paramount Plus. Now, I have no idea. You tell me a lot of different names for a lot of different Star Trek shows.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what this one is. But if you want to take it from here, then go ahead.
Yeah. This is a perfect segue from what you were talking about as far as trust, because this is a series, Star Trek Prodigy. It's an animated adventure that aired on Paramount Plus. First season had 20 episodes. Great series, and it was renewed for a second season. And then with the Paramount picture Paramount Plus adding the Showtime tier to the streaming package. The CBS Studios, Viacom, the studio basically like started canceling content off of the Paramount Plus streaming platform to make room for the Showtime edition, which they also added a price hike to it, and they also they removed Prodigy, which is pretty much all but it's in post production now. I mean, it was slated to be released later this year, so it wasn't like it was a thing that was in development or whatever. We had a season 1, we had a confirmed big fanfare on renewals of Star Trek shows, and this was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get this news earlier this week, where they are, at least pulling it from the Paramount Plus. And then not only did they pull it from Paramount Plus, but, originally we thought that we would at least have it till tomorrow. They like announced it, I think, on a Friday. And then thankfully I started rewatching it because it was gone the next day, just because, and then they then like jack the prices up and again, alienate a lot of your customer base.
Yeah.
Now, of course, but of course, since all the Star Trek properties right now are on that, at least in the United States, is only on Paramount Plus as far as the new stuff, then, you're pretty much, they pretty much got you by the, by the balls in your pocketbook, because you can't, if you want to watch this stuff new, you can't go find it somewhere else unless you pirate it or something like that, which has its own issues.
They're encouraging piracy. Got it.
Yeah. So that was, that's an example of where people are like, well, okay, why should we trust these two? Yeah.
Yeah. You can't even trust your streaming services these days because you think, oh, this is their show, it's always going to be there. And then next thing you know, a merger happens and suddenly half of everything you thought you had access to is gone because of negotiations. And it's a mess. It's a mess.
But just to the Star Trek fans who do listen, the two brothers who are co-showrunners of the show, are shopping the show to other platforms, and they even though they, at least the latest things I saw from them today on social media is that things are looking promising. They didn't want to jinx anything as far as any potential deals, but sounds like the show is going to find a home for a second season.
Yeah, that's good. And it's also interesting how it doesn't always work, but there's a handful of shows that have been canceled and then all of a sudden get picked up by another streaming service or network, and suddenly it's a revival. And the show changes. That's something really interesting for viewers is, say, on this network, they couldn't do this. And then suddenly they moved over to Netflix and now it looks like this. Interesting.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, that is it for news. And one show that we know we're going to get a 4th season to, that just ended its 3rd season, is Superman and Lois. Oh, I have some thoughts. Like, we didn't talk Superman and Lois last week, so we're not going to go scene by scene through either episode. However, and we're probably going to ultimately end up just talking about the finale, given the penultimate just as a lead into it, giving us more story about Lex and building up his motivation as a character, which we'll see play out more in season 4. Again, Will, between the casting, you also mentioned something about, it's probably going to end up in a cliffhanger. It totally did. Like, kind of a stupid cliffhanger just because they got picked up for a 4th season. I'm sorry.
But I will say, thankfully they did, because the way that cliffhanger ended, I would have been pissed if I had gotten word that they had canceled the series.
I would have been annoyed considering the writers knew they were on the bubble, like while putting this season together, that they decided to end it that way. But I actually, I'm like 50-50 on this episode, on this finale. Because I really did like the ending fight. I thought that was really cool, really well done. A lot of the build-up, Jordan Jordan redeemed himself for me in season 2, but now he reminds me of season 1 Jordan too much.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Anytime Jordan and Sarah scenes come on, I just like, I'm not to the point where I was like with some scenes in The Flash where I would like fast forward, but that'll be the moment. It's like, okay, let me just check Twitter and see what's going on.
Yeah. Seriously. I'll be honest. I did fast forward through a lot of the killing of, Bizarro Superman to make him stronger, just because I was like, I see what they're doing. I don't have to watch it like 5 times. I'm just gonna move along here.
Well, that scene. So, I know you fast forwarded and stuff, but actually it was a very telling and really like got to, as you noted with the penultimate, we saw Lex's story in the 17 years and why he was so angry at Lois and all. But given what we know about and the Bizarro Superman's backstory and how they established in season 2, as far as he was Superman on Bizarro World, and he was like Jordan. He did enjoy the fame and all those kind of things, and seeing Lex negotiate with him as far as I'll kill you, and once he figured it out, make you stronger, but there, when those things are happening, but you see in the Bizarro Superman or I guess zombie Superman at this point, still having some touch of humanity in him, because he was crying, and it seemed like there was, even though on the one hand he was like buying Lex's BS as far as like the negotiation and the bribery that Lex was doing to like so Lex could construct him to become eventually Doomsday, which is also very true to the comic Bizarro Doomsday. But then here in the show, knowing the Bizarro Superman's backstory, I did have some empathy for it. So it was actually, if you told me you were fast forwarded because it was just hard to watch, I mean, there were some points where I was just like, knowing what I know about this character, I feel kind of bad for the guy.
Right. No, I saw that part of it. Okay. It was just like again and again and again. I'm like, I don't need to. Like, and it's not that, trust me, I've watched some hard shows. That it wasn't the hard. I just was like not interested to see it. And I just wanted to get on with the story.
Got it.
I wanted to get back to the boring stuff. I don't know. Like again, I'm 50-50 on this, and I didn't make the connection, but you're right, between his desire to be back to his glory, and him doing it for the wrong reasons, unlike the Clark we know who does it for the right reasons, which is very similar to what the writers are doing with Jordan at the moment, and putting him in this position of, you're a teenager with these powers. You're not your dad, but you still have these powers. And we're seeing some teenage angst and rebellion against, well, I want to do this because I think I understand what a hero is. Not even though I'm still trying to figure out what my moral compass is. And that is interesting. I guess I just am tired of the Sarah Jordan drama, which we're not going to get a whole lot of next season, considering I think she's one of the cast members who's been reduced to like a guest star, right?
That's correct.
That. So yeah, which that was another funny thing about this episode. Mm-hmm. Like with the John Henry Irons bit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I almost wish they had like just waited. They should just waited until after the season to like announce these changes. I mean, either they because it did knowing what I know going, and seeing how the episode unfolded, it did take away some of the enjoyment. Like you said, it made it 50-50 for me, because now I'm sort of like, oh, I'm looking at the story in the vein of, well, now this is how they can write John Henry out in season 4. And this is how we can have the off ramp for Chrissy and Kyle if necessary. So, was it a strategic thing where they were just like, they knew obviously they know what was coming as far as the finale. And was this a way of, maybe they could have done a better job of like, breaking the news that people were going to be, there's never a good way you can tell, to like tell bad news that people are, getting lesser work or whatever. But it just, it did color knowing what I know, it did color my viewing of the episode.
Right. I think the decision to not only announce the renewal and then simultaneously be like, but read the fine print.
Yeah.
They could have waited on the fine print aspect. And we talked about that right when both of it came out. We're like, why would you do that? Mm-hmm. But I am, knowing it regardless, I am very curious about the next season, just seeing how they continue to develop the core 4, mm-hmm. shall we say, and make their stories both intermingled and also separate. Yeah. And just how if they're able to carry a full season, full 10 episodes with not as much support from a supportive cast, because there are episodes where this doesn't just feel like Superman and Lois. This feels like Smallville 2.0,
Yeah.
And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, we all know about the Flash rants and how they struggled mainly with using the supporting cast. So maybe this will allow people to focus on the character beats that really should matter, and helping elevate those characters rather than stretching themselves too thin across like 10 different stories. So, yeah. I
mean, that's a good point, because, that's one thing I did think of too, because really in these last 2 episodes, we really, the Lex's vengeance was really against Lois.
Yes.
And so, we don't, and, so part of that is like, okay, they didn't want us, we all know that Lex and Superman Superman's, number 1 arch human enemy. So we get that. So I did like the choice that they made, that at least with this, Superman's he's just basically, in the way of if Lois writes again, Lex is gonna like take her out, So I was, and that was the story that they told this season. I mean, it was her reporting that put him behind bars. So I'm glad I think they did do the wise story choice in making that the focus with these last 2 episodes.
Yeah, they really needed to, considering the way they ended the Mannheim arc. And it was a smart choice to plant that seed about Lex being involved, but not it's a logical sense of how the story unfolded with why he was spoken about, but not seen,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so they removed him And then now we're seeing him be brought back in, which, I mean, how many shows have we watched where we're like the big arch nemesis we don't see for like 3 seasons? Or it's just like, where are you? Where is this guy? Oh, there he is. Where have you been? It doesn't really make sense, but this is very clever. And I agree. I like the fact that, and this is the second season that they've done this where the big rivalry hasn't been between the big bad and Clark, but the big bad and Lois. And the family to an extent. But yeah, I don't really care what goes on in the firehouse, okay? I don't care about that. Jonathan, I don't think this is because of the casting change. I just think that they had Jonathan was a fave for like a season and a half. And then he got dragged down and is suddenly just around to be like, I'm human just like my mom. Only I can't write.
Yeah.
And I screwed up.
Yep.
But so I'm hoping again that these reductions in cast allow like Jordan and Jonathan to get more development in more smart ways. And less they're teenagers, so they should be angsty, but focus on the angst involved with having your father be Superman. And they tried to do that with this whole firehouse thing. And they are doing that to an extent with Jordan. It's just fallen a little bit flat right now. So we'll see.
Yeah. I agree. But, but like I mean, as far as finales go, I mean, the fight was, they saved their budget and it showed. I have to say, for a TV budget and a TV show and effects, I mean, it's not to pick, since we're throwing films at the Flash, we'll throw this one. The CG in the show was better than the movie. Oh boy.
I wasn't mad at the choices. It looked like a comic book. Whatever.
Yeah. But, no, but, you know, but, and also I did like, they closed the loop too on the whole Doomsday thing because, when season 2 premiered.
Right.
And and when we first was introduced to Bizarro Superman, at that point he was still in he was in the classic Doomsday reveal outfit. And, whenever they came out of the mines there and we just had this arc, of this character, through the second season and into now. And we finally get Bizarro Doomsday, which, of the various iterations we've seen of Doomsday and this show and Krypton and Batman v Superman, this was a good, I have to say, I really thought that they did a tremendous job with it. And that fight, again, was just, it was, I know a lot of times the show sort of shies away from a lot of the spectacle, but when they decided to show spectacle, they definitely, made it, they got their money's worth.
Yeah. My only other question is just, does anybody else remember that time this season when Lois had cancer?
Yeah. To be fair, they did address. Now, are you talking about the rest of the people in Smallville or us as an audience or the story?
Oh, as an audience.
Okay.
Like they talk about it on the show. I understand that. This whole cancer thing, you know me, I was kind of hesitant going into it.
You were.
And they started off strong. And then And then as it went on, it was more like they don't know what they're doing. They're not using this right. It just bothers me. I mean, she still has all of her hair. I'm sorry. I just can't unsee that.
Yeah.
And I also I'm also wondering how long everything unfolded. Because I don't remember when the school year started for the boys, but now all of a sudden it's big deal that it's ending. So I'm like, oh, did it start at the beginning of the season or the beginning of last season? I don't know what the timeline is anymore for how long she was sick.
That's a good point. Because because even like between the penultimate and the finale, I mean, if they hadn't said, it's been 31 days or whatever, I would have thought like, oh, this is just, this is the next day or whatever after, Lex showed up at the farm. So, but I hear you on the cancer story, and overall, I think there were moments where, the superhero show aspect of it did sometimes take away. I don't want to say take away, but the story with Lois and Bruno's wife, Pia, those were the nice moments and stuff. And I think I felt they still addressed it pretty well. I mean, they didn't show her having to like shave her head or anything like that because of the chemo. But I mean, they did really, I felt where they really did do a good job of like really exploring like Lois and her as an individual and her sexuality and being, a person and I mean, I'm a guy, so I can't like speak about, having breast cancer or anything like that, but at least as an audience viewer and, seeing the things that that she was trying to convey as someone who was having a mastectomy and everything. I thought that they handled that pretty well and pretty, and with the right level of sensitivity.
I guess it just didn't work for me. There, like I can see everything it was trying to do. And it had good sensitivity, but at the end of the day, it felt awkward, especially towards the end. It felt like they were trying to make a point, and have a strong character moment, but I'm just like, what does this have to do with the current conflict going on with Soups? There's just a way to do it, and they've done it in the past where you have these more human moments, but how the complexity with being married to Superman, like they could have really done some interesting things with. They could have taken it to further. I guess I felt like it's a lot of it was just when they started to get deep, they completely aborted and focused on something else. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I think we even contemporary to when those episodes aired, I think that was something you brought up then. And you're right. I mean, I think they could have like fleshed that out a bit more. But also too, just thinking moving ahead to season 4, I mean, is this going to be something that they're going to continue as far as the storyline and just the long range aspects of her recovery? Or is it going to be like, we get to season 4 when she has a clean bill of health?
I think the latter.
But it's a fair, I mean, that's, thinking about what you brought up. I mean, it's a fair question to ask. I mean, because to your point, I mean, and you're right. I mean,
they already started to act like she had a clean bill of health. Okay. They've already started that. So I don't think it's not going to be referenced. But I don't think that they're gonna they're going to focus on any more of the recovery per se. So they might play the card and then you'll be like, oh yeah, she did have cancer. I remember now.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Well, on that note, let's head over to Secret Invasion.
Yeah. One last thing. Yeah. Goodbye, General Lane. It was good knowing you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Secret Invasion, Will, you have been waiting to talk about it. So why don't you tell us your thoughts on this episode?
So, yeah, I really, and as a message to you, I really enjoyed this episode, mainly because I think I've hit where I enjoy the MCU, the stories that the MCU and the movies that have really, and shows that have like excelled for me and really resonate with me, like Civil War, like Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And it's the grounding and the deeper philosophical things that they get into, exploring. I mean, let me just jump right to it. I mean, that scene between Rhodey and Fury when they talk about, two African American males who've made it. And you have the help a brother out conversation versus Rhodey's like, look, man, help a brother out. I'm not going to help a brother out who's mediocre, just like that Alexander Pierce that he replaced. I mean, that whole dynamic and just thinking of it from the larger context of like the W. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and the showing the black community is not just a monolithic thing, but a diverse diaspora of people. That's that kind of stuff when the MCU does that. And like, I think back to like the the Civil War when they were arguing over the Sokovia Accords and those kind of things. That's when I'm like locked into this series. That's the things where I really like where the MCU does well. Now, granted, there are some pieces of this episode that I did feel were rushed, but that moment I was like on the edge of my seat, like, and that was, I'm really, I know so far there's not a lot of buzz about this show compared to some of the other things in the MCU, but I so far I'm on the Secret Invasion train. And I haven't been like that on MCU projects much lately. And, but this one I am so far. I mean, they got 4 episodes, so they can still screw things up, but we'll see.
Yeah, speaking about that Rhodes and Fury conversation, I just want to say Don Cheadle, his performance was better than Samuel L. Jackson in that moment.
It was.
And it bothered me, especially when Samuel L. gets up and it's like, just when I'm out, I'm always in. And I'm like, no, don't. Yeah. You're ruining it. Stop it. Don't do that. And I know that's not necessarily all his fault. It's also like the way it was written. Mm-hmm. But I was like, this was such a good moment. And then you had to it felt like something you would see. And I know you've never seen this franchise, but something you would see in a Fast and Furious movie. I was like, why? Yeah. But yeah, overall, I was watching this episode and I'm like, Will is having the time of his life. I love this because this is so up your alley for all of the shows you previously mentioned, and I like it. I'm getting more adjusted to it. There still is a lot of quietness, I would say. Mm-hmm. But I do appreciate how they are focusing. Like, we got a lot of Gravik this episode, even some backstory. Yep. We're starting to learn more about his Fury abandonment issues, which I don't know who has more Fury abandonment issues, if it's Gravik or if it's Talos. I just don't know. I think everybody is like, dude, you left me for X amount of years and now you're back and I'm grown up.
Yeah. 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 That's a good point. I hadn't thought of, I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. That there is a lot of Fury abandonment issues in this, and things coming home to roost. And I think to your point about, John Cheadle's performance and the larger point that he was making about why he was firing Nick Fury, Nick's failed on the job.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I found it interesting how they, I wasn't expecting, like, all of a sudden within this episode, the fallout of last week's episode to be Gravik now manipulating it. So the blame is on Fury. The blame is on the Americans. And I thought that was so clever in how they did that. And it made all the sense. And so part of me was kind of on Fury's side, though, where I'm like, no, you knew he's not responsible for this. And you're also Rhodes is also suffering from Fury abandonment syndrome. I mean, good God. Yeah. And meanwhile, the viewers just left, okay, we get it. Y'all missed him. Why did he stay in Saber for so long? Like, can we get more to that? Like, answering that question. Because if I hear another person yell at him for leaving her, I swear. But yeah, I forget where I was going with that. I went off on a tangent.
No. Yeah, you're saying about the Fury abandonment and Gravik's having that as well. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, but how? Well, basically, I mean, I think you're, and the one thing I agree with you is like how everyone has manipulated after the events in Moscow. How they quickly pivot and really, manipulating events to the place where, Gravik's like, okay, I'm taking over. I'm going to be Grand General of the Council here. As far as these scrolls that have been relocated to Earth.
Yeah, that was his plan. He knew, I'm going to do this. I like what Gaia asked him in the car, did you know Fury was going to be there? And he's like, no, I didn't, but I hoped. And so I think the aspect of pinning it on Fury was just like fortunate coincidence and just this happened. But he had this plan of making this attack and then confronting the council, who happened to be all Skrulls as world leaders, and saying, this is what's going to happen. We need to start this war because we're not finding a new home. This is our home and we're going to take over. And that scene I thought was very, very cool. It reminded me of the Sith Council scene from Mandalorian season 3.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And the only thing that I was like, well, that was a weird choice, is Gravik is our villain. And he's supposed to be like very intimidating. Why the heck did he let that one go? Like, I was totally prepared for that one member who was completely against this.
Yeah.
To get killed. He let her go. She even made a phone call, not even completely outside of the building, immediately told on him to Talos. And I'm thinking, so when is she going to die? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
I was too. And that was the predictable thing to happen. And that's what I liked about this episode, is that they are the things that you think are going to go down, do not go down. And so, cause that would be the predictable thing that the baddie would do. It's like, okay, so I was like, okay, well, if she's going to get let go, then maybe the NATO guy, the NATO Secretary General, will be the one that he offs. But no, he doesn't do that. And I think it's one of those things. I don't know if it's like there's only, he's manipulated the situation to the place where it will be hard. He still needs to have her, even though she doesn't agree with the outcome. She's still she still has a very prominent place in the geopolitical space.
Oh yeah.
So he can't eliminate her, because then it undermines the bigger scheme
Right.
of his domination. So,
And ultimately, a war, you have to have two sides. So she can go and be on the other side. That's perfectly fine. They can still be at war, and he's getting what he wants.
Exactly.
He doesn't want peace,
No.
which does make sense. And we are, as we learn this episode, there are 1 million Skrull refugees on Earth. And 1 million Skrulls, just like humans, don't always get along. So there can be inner warring as well. And I do find it interesting because the Skrulls first came to Earth in the 90s.
That's correct. Captain Marvel.
But it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds as though this episode, when especially Fury learned about the refugee situation, he was kind of shocked. And I'm like, 3 decades, 2.5 decades since they first came. Why are you surprised? They're a species. They can multiply just like the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, but again, to your point, he was gone.
But we don't
between the blip and then heading up to save her, he's just like,
Yeah.
He's been asleep at the switch, and Talos was like, come on down. Because you told us in 1997 that we will find a home for you. And they're like, we got tired of waiting. It's been almost 30 years.
Well, yeah, even with the blip, it still has been 30 years. So, and he wasn't, up until the blip, he was very much around. So I still, even with that excuse, the way it sounded almost came off that we're expected to believe within the span of post-blip to now, that's when 900,000 Skrulls migrated to Earth.
So I'm thinking things happened pre-blip. That migration happened.
I'm saying, which makes me wonder, why didn't Fury know then?
Maybe, given that what we learned at the end of the episode, maybe he was just taking a blind eye to it. Or maybe this Talos just did a good job of just really, just covering it up. He saw the type of person Nick Fury is. And, if Nick saw that invasion was going to tip world affairs to this, especially given that during that time period, we had Ultron and all the other external.
He was preoccupied.
Yeah. I think it's preoccupied. 1, 2, you may have looked at that as an additional invading force. Because to your point,
that's what he is now looking at it. No, we can't handle that. And he does know he's married to a Skrull. He does know. They confirmed that.
Yeah. And I like the way that they pulled something just a throwaway line from years ago in Winter Soldier, using it today. Right.
Which I didn't even remember that line. It's been a while since I've watched Winter Soldier. I think that there are some questions I remain to have about this timeline we're dealing with, because whether majority of the migration happened pre-blip or post-blip, I don't know why he's so shocked. But there's a lot that we don't know about Fury, and that's why we get 6 episodes to explore that. And which another question is, yes, both Talos and Gravik to an extent have Fury abandonment issues and are both pissed off about this promise of a new home never fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, because I forget which character said it. I think it was the girl who was let go from the council meeting who told Talos, like, you don't get it. Gravik has changed. But
Yeah.
Talos was after Gravik in the first episode. I think, and he knows that Gravik killed his wife. So I'm pretty sure he knows. So I'm just wondering more about, we're probably going to get more flashbacks with Gravik, but seeing how he became who he is and more of what he was while under Fury's tutelage. Yeah. And I also, Gaia is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
No. Yeah.
In a way where I'm like, what is your purpose? I get it. You're Talos's daughter and you're on the other side. So it's good. Like, we have people on both sides of this, families on both sides of this, but you're doing a lot of like just observing, and I don't know if you're investigating, trying to get your confirmation that Gravik did kill your mom, or if you're suddenly just have woken up to this idea that you chose the wrong person to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. I feel like, I'm like, man, I'm getting double agent vibes from her. And it's just like,
or triple agent. I'm like, okay, what are we doing with you? I wish there was romance between you and Gravik. I could buy into that. You're both refugees. You've clearly grown up together, but the way he talked about when you first came to him, it doesn't sound like there is that romantic vibe. I don't get it. I don't get what I'm supposed to understand about this, but.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is like that true believer. And, thinking back to like some of the relationships people had in Falcon and Winter Soldier, as far as I can't remember the name of the group, the antagonist group in during that series. But I mean, it's a similar vibe. The Gravik's group has that similar vibe to them. And as far as the structure and the interpersonal dynamics within that faction of the Skrulls.
Carly, you're talking about Carly.
Yeah, Carly.
Yeah, I had to look that up. But I was like, what was that? Yeah, we're only 2 episodes in. I found Carly to be a lot more interesting. Granted, she served in the Gravik type role.
True.
So it's kind of like they took Carly and split her into 2 characters, because now you have Gravik and Gaia. And in a way you want both of them to come to their senses. But I mean, yeah. This show, the more you talk about it, the more they are doing some very interesting things that just you're almost holding your breath. I hope this pays off, because we know what tends to happen, especially towards the end.
Exactly. That's what I said. We got 4 episodes left, 4 hours left. And it's in the way, and there are some things that honestly I'm like, why aren't they doing this Disney Plus sticking to, like, sometimes it's okay to spread things out to 10 episodes or whatever. They don't need, because I think the more we talk about some of these, like, for example, the Fury abandonment syndrome and this Fury himself, some of his choices as far as why did he go away and why did he stay away? And I just feel like we're just going to get superficial answers to some of those points.
Yeah, which I will kill fight. And hate mail.
Yeah. No more. Yeah.
They are very much at the start of a spy espionage thriller where you don't know who to trust. You're seeing everyone's motivations. You're seeing the conflict. They're opening a lot of doors. They're asking a lot of questions that as a viewer, you're just like, okay, I see you open that door. I'm willing to walk through it. I don't know what's on the other side. God forbid it's not a good payoff.
Yeah.
It better be good.
Because I will say it right now. If they make Rhodey a Skrull after that speech in that restaurant, I will be, and then I take back what I said about why I don't like the MCU and these types of MCU episodes, because, that would be the predictable thing. Two, they already did it once with the first episode with, Ross, with Everett Ross.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, but in 3, it'll just undermine that wonderful moment that was written by this, but written in this episode.
Here's my thing. He can be a Skrull, and then in the next series, they bring Rhodes back and be like, no, this is real Rhodes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the weird thing about these species who can turn into other people. They don't have to always be that person. They can turn into other people. Like, we saw that with Fury killing Maria. Oh, wait, no, it was Gravik. So.
Yeah. Or, it was Gravik. Yeah, and even this episode with Talos, whenever when they were on the train, and whenever the soldier came by, and which that was a nice little moment too, when Fury did kick Talos off the train, and she kind of morphed back to the beautiful woman, and she kind of like, did her little hair thing, just to like, if the soldiers happened to be there, they wouldn't think none the wiser as far as like, the fact that this was Talos, a shapeshifter.
I know people give a lot of crap to the first Miss Marvel movie, but Talos definitely was a standout, especially the second half of that movie. Yeah. And I think part of the reason why that second half worked so well was because of his chemistry with not only Samuel L. Jackson, but also Brie Larson. And so now we're getting a lot of episodes with 2 of them. Interacting on a regular basis. And I really like that. I think that if you remove Talos, like, I don't think this show works as well.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And it's not just because it's being played by Ben Mendelsohn. It's a good ensemble so far. And I really like the actor. I know him from Bridgerton. I was really impressed this episode because he's doing the brooding bad guy thing, but not in an overly indulgent way. Yeah. He's walking a fine line, and I may be sick and tired of it by like the 5th episode, but so far I'm just like, okay, you do you. You do you. Here you go. I like this.
Yeah, well, when he reveals himself as a Super Skrull, when he starts doing the group, and we saw that in like the trailers and stuff where he's like morphing it. Yeah, so that's, so that's something to come. And speaking of, we can't end our discussion without talking about Olivia Colman this episode and her whenever she was interrogating Brogdon. That scene, I mean, just her. And her role in all of this, as far as like, like you're saying, there's so many different pieces of this puzzle that everybody's trying to like figure out. And so she's just goes right into that meat locker and, just gets the Russians all out of the room and how she just plays that the torture as far as just trying to get the information out of the Skrull there. And, it was just like, it was deliciously devilish. I mean, she just played it so well. I'm trying to just sort of see how her character fits into overall thing, as well, as the series.
She's someone new for us, and she's so far a good guy, but she's also not buddy with Fury. She's not buddy with Talos. Like she's kind of this player where you don't cast Olivia Colman for nothing. So I'm just saying that. And I'm surprised that at this rate, we've only seen her really in 2 scenes,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I like how they're giving it to, like, they're saying, okay, here's your Coleman treat. Wait until, like, future episodes. Wait for it. Like, we're gonna, she's around. She's part of this. And so I'm, like I said, they're opening a lot of doors. And I'm like, I'm fully willing to walk through all of these. I just pray what's on the other side is a good payoff. But I will say this. Unfortunately, as much as a great actress she is, I still just see Olivia Colman. Yeah. And I just always remember her Oscar acceptance speech. So I'm just like, oh, I see you. You doing you. Got it.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, on that note, we will wrap it up. And Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Will M. Polk, WILLMPOLK. Be sure to check out my upcoming Star Trek Strange New Worlds review. I'll probably be dropping it Saturday of episode 3. Tomorrow. Watched it today. Banger of an episode. Can't wait to talk about it. Check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Go and support Will. Please, you can follow me at SJ Belmont, SJBLMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.